Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching P3, the place where we feature individuals who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and today I'm very grateful to have the talented and fabulous Andrea Vocab Sanderson. She has a book and an album that she's going to tell us about. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations on all of the amazing awards you've been winning here in San Antonio. You've really been recognized for the work that you do in the community. And I can't wait to hear what power, passion, purpose means to you.
Well, I would say I knew at a very young age what I wanted to do and didn't know all the steps it would take or how it would manifest itself. But I knew at a young age that I wanted to be a public speaker and have influence in people's lives and bring healing to them. I grew up, my grandfather was a pastor, my mom's a minister, and it's a family full of ministers and pastors. My dad's a deacon. And so I grew up centered, in the church, and just being in tune with spirituality. And a lot of spirituality is about divine encounters and the moments when you realize where I am and my circumstance is not what defines me and where I need to be, and then there's transformation, and then there's the journey, right? And so I just feel like the Bible and just a lot of the spiritual teachings are about those experiences where profound people have a moment of impact and encounter. And so I'm always seeking that and always seeking to share that with other people through my work, and just knowing that if you have some, I call it social currency, but it's like the idea of if you can pay attention, even if you have $0, you can pay someone attention, and there's a social currency of I give you my attention, and then you give me energy back, and then becomes this fluid exchange, right?
Yes.
So I'm always thinking about things of that nature and how I can be giving in that capacity.
And I know that the poetry that you do has been healing for you and for a lot of people every time you perform. So obviously that's a passion of yours, and it's part of the purpose that you're living. When did you become passionate in the arts, specifically poetry and music?
Well, age 6, I discovered a typewriter at my aunt's house, and I was like, I want to play with this thing. I want to write something. And I did. Started doing literary magazines as early as like middle school, and I had a friend that was murdered, unfortunately, and I was like, her death will not be in vain. And I wrote a poem for her memorial service. And I've just kind of always used poetry to connect to my emotions and healing. And it really did start 6, 13, up. And I wrote a little less poetry in high school, and got more so into hip hop. But I rekindled the whole passion and love for poetry right after high school and started going to open mics in my early 20s. And so it's just been like trying to figure out a way to marry the art forms of music and poetry and performance art, and it's all coming together,
Yeah.
And I mean, we always can discover more.
Yeah, I feel like every day is a new dawn, a new day to experience something different and to learn, to challenge ourselves. Right, it really expand outside of our comfort zone. Every time you get up on stage, is there a little bit of that fear, or I know that there's that adrenaline rush, which can be excitement, but do you ever experience nerves?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's some times where I'm completely comfortable, and that's maybe 20% of the time, and the rest of the time it's like, and it's always like what do I want to say? There's a few poems that'll be swimming around in my head. Sometimes I know ahead of time, oh, this event calls for this type of poem. But there are the times when I go and I'm not sure of what I'm there to say, or depending on who my audience is, I'm like, I don't know if they're used to this. Will they accept this? And it's like, well, you put it out there, and you have no control over how it's received. All you can do is present what you have, and try to be prepared for it. And I think a lot of times what people don't know, they feel like they're supposed to stumble into the art and just be great at it when they begin something. No, it takes practice, it takes time, it takes crafting. And if you do not practice, then you're not prepared.
That's true. And people do have to get more comfortable with making mistakes, or even the word failure. I wish we could just eradicate that word altogether, but you do learn from it, and
Exactly.
you're not going to nail it, right out the gate. So that's something that you've been flexing for a while now. And it's great that people realize no matter how incredibly gifted you become at your craft, no matter how far you make it, there's always going to be a little piece of you that's like, oh,
Right. And
And
scrutinize ourselves and think about how we could improve it. And also, you just got to still keep practicing.
yeah,
Even if you know your piece and you've been saying it, that you can get up there and blank out. And hopefully, whatever you're there to do, whatever capacity, you practice it to the point where it's muscle memory. But still, even in the fact of it being muscle memory, you still have to be present in the moment and connecting and changing it and not thinking, oh, it's just going to go this way because it's the way it's always gone.
right. And it takes a lot of vulnerability
Mhm.
as an artist to put your craft out there because it's very subjective. Some people are going to love it, other people may not receive it, like you said. But it's about how do you feel about it, and that's really what it's about at the end of the day. So tell us about your book and your album. How long have you been working on this?
Well, the album was released November of 2019, and the book he told me, my publicist
Yes.
from Flower Song, he told me that my birthday of my album was Valentine's Day. I mean, my book was Valentine's Day.
Oh!
So the album is She Tastes Like Music. That was November. The book is She Lives in Music, and that's now.
So how
did it come about?
Yeah, how did that come about? And how cool that Valentine's Day.
Right,
Was
love.
it?
It was birthed in the day
Yeah.
that we associate with love. So, and that's really where I try to keep my center. And there are times when I even get up on stage and I say, my center is love, I come from a place of love. So that people know that that's the reference point where I'm coming from, and even no matter what the topic is that I'm addressing. But the album came about, I guess in some ways organic. Like I had been feeling an emptiness and a void 2017, 2018, just been feeling like I want to create something else, and knowing that not sure about the resources because I was connected to a label before, and that it's so much easier to put out a project, obviously, if you have the support of a label, but I didn't have that. And I mean, I was functioning in a band, and our band was slowly getting that album done, but even so, that was that project, which is a collaborative thing, the Foreign Arm. But I was like, for myself, I want to create something. So I started talking to a friend of mine, and he was like, you can come over and lay some stuff down. And I was like, I just kind of had to work up the nerve to ask him, could I, and how much it would cost. And he was like, I'm not going to charge you because we're still working some stuff out in your family. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So it started out as just a cappella pieces, going over there and just laying them down raw with no music, nothing behind it. And the grant opportunity came up from what was then the Artist Foundation of San Antonio, which became the Luminaria Artist Foundation. They recently changed their name. So I applied for the grant, and even in applying for the grant, I had to get some nudges because I wanted to give up on that. And so,
that always happens. God,
right.
The universe, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
always, if you start to slow down a little bit, it will give you that little kick that you need.
Right, and I just gave my friend Tamara, I was like, this is what I've written. Like, this is my artist statement. This is my proposal. And I was like, girl, I don't even know. I just don't know. And I kind of was just being really negative about it. And she was like, she read it. She was like, Andrea, this is really good. She was like, you have to put in for this. Don't you dare sit on this. Yeah. So literally the day that it was due, an hour before the deadline, we George Bush the button. I'm like, ah! She was like, I'm going to go to the restroom. When I come back from the restroom, we're going to send this thing. And I was like, okay. She left the room. I was like, send. I just sent it while she was gone. I was like, I've got to do this. I got to do it on my own. So I did it. It was a People's Choice Grant, which means people have to vote for me, which I had to ask people to vote for me, right. Which is a whole new level of vulnerability in and of itself. So coworkers that didn't even know that I do this, I typed up this little message on a slip of paper as they were coming in the door. I'm like, read the slip of paper. Okay, go away. I don't want you to read it in front of me. And they're sitting there reading it, looking up at me, saying, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Didn't die. But did you die though?
Yeah, I know. I
didn't die.
Right. I love that line from Hangover. Yeah, but did you die?
Right.
And so, okay.
That's what happened. So I did not die. People voted. I was blown away by the amount of support that I was getting from people who were friends of friends that were like, oh, and people, like even a year, like even into releasing the project, people were like, hey, I voted for you. I remember when my band released our album on November 22nd, because we released our band album like a couple weeks later after that. At the night of our release party, I was sitting there. My band had just come off stage, and I started a conversation with this girl, and she was like, I voted for you when you were putting your project out, and I'm really happy. I was like, who are you, though? But she was really sweet.
Yeah.
People were still telling me that in November, when I released it, I voted for you when you initially asked. And so God is just good, and I'm very grateful.
And with that grant money, what have you been able to do? What has been like your main focus?
So the book and the album, it's a companion project. And what happened was I had someone to publish me, my publicist or whatever, and things happened in their lives, and they slowed down their process. And I was able to get a new publicist without even having to ask. A friend asked for him. He's like, I'll go ask for you.
Yeah.
Just, tie up some loose ends over there with that person, and, then you can have the energy free to move forward. And I was like, okay, tied up that stuff. And my friend asked, and they said yes. And I thought I was going to have to jump through hoops or beg or grovel. None of that. God just set it up.
It was like that ease when you're in tune and when you're
Right.
in your flow.
That's
Right.
It's
like the right people and the right opportunities and the right support that you need comes through. And I think it's so awesome that you mentioned that it is vulnerable to ask for people
Mm-hmm.
to support you, to
Yeah.
help you. And that's something that this past year was coming in really loud. It's like you need to tell people,
what you want and what your passion, what your purpose is.
yes,
Because
and what
people
you
want
do.
to so into it. They
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, especially if they're really into you and they really resonate and connect with you. It's like they want to support you, but how would they know unless you ask? So I think it's really cool that you mentioned that. So now you've got the book out, you've got the album out. What's sort of like the next realm for you? You're going to just sort of swim in this for a while and promote this? Or is there another venture that you have in your mind already that's being sort of seeded?
Well, the next thing to do is to go out and perform, and I haven't even announced it yet, but I'm going to London next month. So this is my announcement. Hey guys, we're going to London next month.
That is incredible. So what are you going to be doing in London?
So on the album, there's a track called Simply Me, and it's a collaboration with myself and this lady named Adelaide McKenzie. She's an awesome artist from the UK, and I'm going over there to do a live recording of our song together and to feature at an event or two. I have about 3 things booked to do while I'm over there. I'm going to be there for maybe a week.
Okay.
And so I'm just trying to fit it in. And maybe if Mark, the guy that produced the track, is down, maybe we'll create something else while I'm there. But basically, the point now is to take this manifestation and present it and just work on doing shows and bookings and things of that for maybe the next couple of years. Just
touring, basically.
Right. Because even though I am a poet, most people know me to be a poet. This is my debut book. I had a chapbook when I was in my 20s, but this is on a press, and it's I didn't self-publish. Which if you got self-published, self-publish.
Exactly.
Get it done. But
yes.
So I gotta work on this. There's this thing called AWP that's coming, which is it's the biggest literary festival in North America as far as authors and publicists and stuff are concerned. I'll be featuring at that. Right after that is San Antonio Book Festival is coming through. And so just focusing on presenting myself as a published author to the world, and then, continuing to do some other things in between.
And tell me just a little bit about the book.
Right, so She Lives in Music. I've noticed a common theme in my life, and whenever I create events, a lot of times it's centered around music, because I don't play instruments, but it's like a vocalist, musician, whatever you want to call it. And so I have a lot of poems that are about music or musically themed, or even if you listen to my poetry, the cadence and the flow of it and the way I present it, it sounds musical, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, I need to start putting that together in one central anthology or collection, if you will. And so that's what it is. It's a collection of poems about musicians, about music, about metaphorically viewing the world through the eyes of an artist. Yes. That sings and vocalizes and just realizes the melody in life.
Right.
So hopefully people gravitate towards it. And it's interesting. I mean, I got poems about Prince. I got a poem about Anita Baker in there. I got a poem about just different types of jazz, you know, a little bit of gospel, you know, just things that influence
you.
Right.
So, you know, obviously you started with talking about how important your spiritual walk is and how that was really infused into your life at a very young age. So you garner your power from that. Luckily, you tapped into your passion pretty early and were brave enough to really follow it. So you're living a very purposeful life. What is it like to live in your power, passion, purpose? What does that feel like? If you could describe that.
You gotta know to take naps. I know you didn't think I was going to say that first.
That's so good, though, and I'm so glad you do. As a mindfulness coach, I'm always talking about rest. You know, the word restoration, the word rest is in it. And in our culture, it's all about do, go, 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 being busy. It's about being productive. And that's important for sure, but we need to practice self-care. And that's something that a lot of people sort of put at the bottom of the list. So I love that you said take naps.
Yeah, it's just when I have discussions with individuals, trying to hear their heart, because you know I wake up a lot of times and I've got texts, inbox messages, emails, all of these things are waiting on me because I sleep during the day and I wake up around 2 or so in the afternoon. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, look at all these people that need me to get back to them today. And so I'm like, one at a time, start chipping away at it and try to get the things on time. Not always. But it's just like, try to set up your life to where you schedule things, you know what you have coming, you prepare for what's coming. And when you have people in your presence, in your space, to, like you said, be present and listen and try to figure out what it is that they want and what can you give, and not giving more and not over promising that.
That's huge. And that really plays into sort of balance, knowing how to find that harmony and balance that works for you. And you know that you work and operate better when you're able to sleep and wake up a little bit later in the afternoon. So you build your lifestyle and your work and everything around being able to do that. So that's being very intentional and deliberate.
Right, because I work night shifts, so when I get off in the morning, some people, most of my coworkers, they stay up and do things. I don't. I go home, I go to sleep, and I wake up later in the afternoon, and I'm up from the afternoon into the evening, and I go back to work overnight. So another part of that, I feel, is like having your alone time. You got to get alone so you can hear yourself. Because if you're always constantly have noise or people or things going on, you don't know what your spirit is saying. You don't know what your heart is saying. And then, because we're walking around and sometimes we're lacking or missing or deficient on something, I'm like, I need something. Something's missing from my life. What am I missing? And take the time to identify those things. And then another thing is creating platforms for other people. It's like you use your platform to uplift and empower and showcase other artists. You know, I believe in strongly that is important. Like if I don't open the door or hold the door open for the next person to walk through, then that makes me selfish in my opinion. And I want to continue to create platforms and do artist events and showcases, emerging artist showcase. I'm blessed. I'll take a pause in case you want to ask me something.
No, please keep going.
The San Antonio Current came to me last year and they were like, who is some artists that we should be on the lookout for? Give us 3 artists. We're going to do a profile article on them. And I went away, I thought about it, and I came back with some artists. People come to me and they're like, hey, Vocab, we want to do a show. Do you know any people? Do you know any poets that could come out? And this is our budget. This is the situation. And so I'm put in this position a lot of times where people come to me and they're like, can you create something or can you expose or shed light on? And I'm like, okay, I'm just really thinking about that and trying to figure out how I can be an asset to other people.
Absolutely. And that's a really great piece of wisdom to share as we sort of start to wrap up this episode of P3 is what piece of advice would you like to give those who are interested in poetry? Is there I don't know if that's kind of a hefty question or
Yeah,
it is.
But it's
or
good.
just a start of some kind. You
No,
know?
I'm totally okay with
Yeah.
this because I'm asked this question and I want to help. So one is read other people, which a lot of people don't want to read other people, but you got to read somebody. Read other works. Familiarize yourself with the form of poetry and identify the style that you want for yourself. And it's not about emulating the people that you look up to, but it's about understanding who came before you, what preceded you, and thinking about where you want to take it. Because you can live for the present or the past, but we're really trying to progress our art form. And so you got to think about, what am I here to contribute? And all you can do is your part, right? So the idea of understanding where the art form was before you came into it and how you can contribute to it, and then figure out a way to professionally present yourself, whether that be having your business card available, building your brand, getting out and doing public performances, not putting something out there before you're emotionally ready to put it out there. All of these things come into play when we think about it, because we're performing for ourselves, but there's also the listener, and we have to consider what we're giving them. And there's a level of selfishness, but there's also selflessness to what we're doing, and consider both.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was beautiful. And is there a performance or anything that's going to be coming up, or a place that they can maybe go search you and your music and your book? Like, how can they find your stuff?
Right. So the book is on www.flowersongbooks.com. They are relaunching the website in a few weeks, but it's there like the first, as soon as you click on the website, the first book up there is my books. So you can pre-order it or order it.
And the title again for that is
She Lives in Music.
She Lives in Music.
Yeah, it's purple and blue. It's like a brown lady with blue hair. You can't miss it.
You can't miss it. And your album is She Tastes Like Music.
Right, and it's the
love
same picture.
Yeah, and the artwork on there is fantastic. What was the name of the artist?
So Matt Shelton, and she goes by Matt's Visionary Dreams.
Yes.
And I have a cool story, but I will not get into the cool story. But she came to see me at an event and basically asked me if she could paint me. I sent her some pictures. That's what she came up with, and I was like, I told her before, I was like, I'm going to use this for my covers of my book, and then I was like, I might as well use it for my album, and it ended up being both. So
Perfect. Well, you guys have to check it out. Thank you for all that you're doing to help others. Poetry is growing, and I love what you're doing with it, so thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of P3, when Gina Grace will be telling us what power, passion, and purpose mean to her. Till next time, peace be in us.